And now it's time to answer the age-old question. Will James Gunn and Peter Safran DC Universe? That one was a stretch. That one was kind of a stretch.
Let's talk about that.
Exactly. What's up, guys? This is the Cinefanatics here. We're doing the Cinefanatics podcast as we have been. My name's Chris Adams.
And I'm Robert Adams.
And we are talking today about the recent news, the recent tweet from James Gunn, and all of the DC stuff. We had other plans, but you know what? Sometimes you like to pivot when some interesting stuff to talk about. Ross? When some interesting stuff pops up to talk about, and by golly, we could definitely go for an hour on this subject.
By golly.
By gee golly whiz.
Watch the language. There's little children. But the children! Think of the children!
Lola's
Lola's heard way worse.
True. So if you guys aren't familiar with this tweet, James Gunn put out a tweet about how they are, in the new year, going to be unveiling their plans, or their initial plans, for the direction of the future of the DC universe, in terms of movies, obviously. That does include a priority given towards Superman. However, that priority is that they're going to do Superman as a younger man. So it doesn't make as much sense to have Henry Cavill back in the role, meaning Henry Cavill is no longer going to be Superman. However, they have had discussions with him, positive discussions in terms of maybe other roles he can play or another way that he can be involved in the DC universe, should he still want to be.
I know, like, James Gunn's also tweeted out images of, images from Alex Ross's Kingdom Come. So maybe alluding to that he may look into going that story route later.
Right.
Which could necessitate bringing Henry Cavill back as the older Superman for that storyline. That might be pretty good. Or like even if they go something along the lines of like the Dark Knight Returns with the old, which is kind of what they were somewhat doing with Batman v Superman.
Sure. The other thing also is I saw our good friend William Bibbiani. He tweeted out an idea, and that would basically be a crossover event of a Crisis on Infinite Earths type situation.
Yeah.
In which case you have a situation where you can bring a Superman from another universe, and that Superman still be played by Henry Cavill. It could be a future Superman, it could be an older Superman, however. Because here's the thing. Multiverses are hot right now.
Thanks, Marvel.
They're in. Multiverses are in, regular cinematic universes out. And it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future because that's the nature of a multiverse. That is an ongoing storyline that never has a finality to it unless you end the entire cinematic universe in some way.
Also from a comic book standpoint, DC has done this
way
more than Marvel has. Marvel really hasn't had like extinction level events to their main comic book storyline as much as DC has. DC has done like Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crisis on Multiple Earths, Crisis here, Crisis there, the New 52, this, that, and the other. Like they've rebooted their core universe so many times.
Yeah.
Marvel has done it a couple of times, but they typically don't mess with it that much just because of how convoluted it could get with origins and this, that, and the other. You're straying away from the characters that we know, that we love. Like for DC, for example, is Jonathan Kent, Pa Kent, currently alive or dead in the current DC universe?
I don't know.
Who knows? Oh. No one knows.
I didn't realize that was the correct answer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just that's just one example. Just every time they reboot that universe, things change like that. He's alive. He's not alive. Like, all right, well, decide.
Yeah, and obviously I think we're going to see that type of a situation happen with the movies. I think the big thing here is knowing that they finally have their Kevin Feige, that DC finally has their Kevin Feige, essentially, and ironically it's James Gunn, someone who's worked with Kevin Feige. And I think that's a good foundation to build off of, which means it's nice to know at least that wherein for the last decade or so, we've had a DC universe that seemed kind of, whoa, we don't know where we're going.
Like they're connected, but
are they really though? But yes, they are. But also here's the original director's vision. All kinds of like craziness has been happening over the last decade with DC. Now it's nice to have somebody, at least somebody, two somebodies in this case, who are sitting back and going, okay, pretend I'm like Iron Man with his like hologram or whatever.
Yeah.
Looking at the big picture. I know what pieces that we need to plug in, and I know where we're plugging them in at. Somebody could have told DC from the beginning, hey, look what Marvel's doing. Follow that exactly 1-to-1.
So the big reason why we haven't seen that, and I've done like some of the research on this, so I'm going to kind of say this like very concise here. Marvel really started out on their own. Like in the late 90s, or the mid to late 90s, a lot of people know Marvel was going through a potential bankruptcy.
Right.
To kind of help save themselves. They lent out their characters to studios. Namely, for example, Fox got X-Men, you got Sony got Spider-Man,
yeah.
Fox got Fantastic Four, Daredevil. So that's
Universal
why
got Hulk.
Yeah, that's why all those characters all went off to those studios, and those studios started making movies. Mm-hmm. And then what happened is basically Marvel's like, well, why don't we do this ourselves? Well, what do we have access to? Well, we have access to...
You see that clip of Thanos? Fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, basically that's what it was. Kevin Feige had proved himself. He was a personal assistant to Lauren Schuler Donner. So he proved himself through being a producer on X-Men in 2000.
Right.
That he started having more ideas. That at the time the big producer for Marvel was Avi Arad, and just Avi Arad just couldn't follow the same ideas that he had.
Yeah.
So it ended up becoming where Feige ended up taking more of a leadership position in this new Marvel Studios idea. They tried getting like a loan. They put like 10 of their characters on this loan that if something was to happen, Marvel would lose the rights to these 10 characters to the bank, basically. Or something like that. They had to crank out like 10 certain amount of movies over a course of years.
And then, of course, the bank could do whatever they want with them. They could give them out to other studios to do something with.
Yeah. So basically, all of that, the characters they put up for collateral, the timeline that the bank was saying that you need to be making these movies in, Marvel way above and beyond hit those goals.
Enter Iron Man 1, and the rest was history.
Yeah, so the first movie they did was Iron Man because no one else had access to it, and Iron Man wasn't that big of a character at the time. He was still kind of like a C-list character in the Marvel Comics.
He's A-list now.
Oh, yeah, no, he's definitely A-list. But one of the things I did like, even from that first Iron Man movie, is we did have Kevin Feige was the main figurehead, the one making all the decisions for how Marvel Studios would go. They did that in the movie, too, by introducing Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury at the end, because at least for those first couple of movies, Nick Fury really was the glue, really holding them all together. From the first Iron Man, at least through 2012 Avengers, Nick Fury had his hands in pretty much everything, or at least controlling S.H.I.E.L.D., and you had S.H.I.E.L.D. was involved in everything, like Coulson being in Thor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you had like a lot of that, and it was basically an on-camera Kevin Feige, and I think that's one of the things the DC movies, when they first started, like Man of Steel, which was essentially, I would say, the first movie in this DC, the DCEU as it was called.
Correct.
There was nothing in that movie that really connected it to anything else. It was, for all intents and purposes, a standalone movie, and then it was like an afterthought that someone's like, you know what, let's do what Marvel's doing and connect all these movies together.
Well, I do think that they made that movie with the intention of doing that, with the intention of
But it wasn't obvious in the movie.
Yeah, they didn't do anything within the movie that specifically stood out. I mean, yeah, they really didn't have like a single character or a single storyline or anything that kind of implied that. I don't know if maybe there was like a Wayne symbol somewhere at some point.
The buildings had like Wayne Enterprises.
But that's not really enough.
There was one, but it got edited out. And I know you remember this, that like spoiler alert for Justice League, or specifically Zack Snyder's Justice League, that what's his name, Swanwick was actually Martian Manhunter, and I believe that was supposed to be evident in Man of Steel. Like they were going to do some kind of a connection, and that got deleted out.
And that's the thing. If they had like set that up, if they had done something where like you get like a quick glimpse of like some red eyes or something on him at some point in the movie, then that would have been the situation you're talking about. But otherwise, if you just leave Man of Steel in a vacuum by itself, Swanwick was Swanwick.
Yeah. The thing is Martian Manhunter actually would have been good in the Nick Fury position of bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
There was I think it was like around 1997, there was supposed to be a Justice League TV show. There was a pilot made, completely failed miserably, but that pilot was still like produced and copied and bootlegged at conventions and stuff, so you can still see it. Sort of. It's probably on YouTube somewhere as well, but
Probably.
the point of that pilot was Martian Manhunter, played by, I believe it was David Augensteyers,
is going out of his way to try to find some Oreo cookies.
Yeah, no, he is the one who's gathering all the Justice League together.
To find him some Oreo cookies.
Sure, but yeah, he's the one that's recruiting everyone and putting the team together. They could have easily done that with the DCEU had they left that in.
And also would have benefited the character of Batman a little bit more, because Batman's not supposed to be the one that brings the Justice League together.
No. Batman's the last person to join, if he even actually officially joins at all.
He's notoriously anti doing anything with anybody other than Robin, and you had to like pull his arm in order to get Robin on board.
Yeah, like he really loves working alone, with the exception of like Robin, Catwoman, Huntress, Alfred. I'm just gonna start going through all the characters he's ever worked with.
Legitimately though, his mindset is, I work alone, I don't want to endanger other people. I know the best situation, how to solve these problems. I don't need anybody else.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he obviously works with multiple people over time and then later became part of the Justice League. But yeah, that's the situation. Is DC kind of didn't really know. All they knew from the beginning is that, hey, Marvel's got a successful cinematic universe. We want that too. Hey, we just saw the Avengers, because obviously Man of Steel came out in 2013. Avengers happened in 2012. So DC started their universe technically late by all accounts.
After Marvel was already done with phase 1 damn near.
Yeah, so they saw the success of Avengers and went, you know what? We gotta get on that. We gotta get on that part of the train. We need to jump aboard the team up train, because by the time we otherwise get a team up done, it's going to be long past the Avengers and no one's going to care about team ups anymore.
And my question on this,
which is fundamentally a mishandling of the knowledge of the popularity of the DC characters in general. Superman being arguably the most famous superhero of all time. He is what you think about when you think of the word superhero.
Yeah.
So
pretty much, yeah.
You have the game. You have the whole breadth of time that you need in order to raise up these characters right and do a team up movie. They didn't realize that. They didn't understand we could take our time and people will actually be okay with it.
They were sprinting to the finish from the very beginning.
And they pulled a hamstring.
Yeah, I mean, damn near, yeah. So that was the problem, is they saw like how good that team up was with Avengers, and them knowing like we could do something just as amazing and phenomenal with the Justice League.
Great characters, we could team them up now.
But yeah, the reason it worked well with Marvel is because they built these characters over years. Bingo. And DC was trying to just get straight to the point. Mm-hmm. They were just trying to get all the characters in bed together and skip taking them out to dinner. There's an analogy for you.
Wow.
But I mean, yeah, that's essentially what they did with it, and that's why it didn't quite work out so well.
Yeah, because the thing about building a cinematic universe is you've got to make sure your first one out the gate works and is good. Which,
the Mummy,
for all intents and purposes, woof. For all intents and purposes, Man of Steel did work, and it was good.
But again, we had no idea it was supposed to be building a world with this first movie.
And the outside perspective also is that technically, I think, and this is going to be my opinion. If you have a different opinion, you're welcome to it. Obviously, I'm not going to tell anybody they can't have a different opinion. But Superman is not supposed to be a dark character. I will say that there's aspects of him that can be dark. I'm one of those that didn't actually mind that he snapped Zod's neck. I didn't mind that because we're talking about a Superman who's kind of just becoming Superman. I'm okay with a Superman learning the fact that he doesn't want to do that ever again. Yeah. I'm okay with that aspect. But overall, Superman is not supposed to be a muted character. He's supposed to be oversaturated. He's supposed to be bright. He's supposed to be a beacon of light, essentially, not not a symbol of muted darkness. So in that regard, I think that DC kind of got off on the wrong foot with Man of Steel. That being said, that's not something that you can't course correct with a sequel. You can course correct that easy. And the movie also still wasn't bad. It just wasn't exactly what it should be.
It just wasn't exactly all that good either.
That being said, I do think that James Gunn and Peter Safran have a better idea in line with what they want to do with Superman.
So what I'm really hoping is, and we haven't gotten, I don't feel like I've actually gotten a good, like, satisfying answer to this, is how much of this is Warner Brothers just staying hands off with. Like, is Warner Brothers Discovery, is Zaslav backing off and just leaving it to Peter Safran and James Gunn, much like Marvel does or Disney does with Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige's like the end-all, be-all of anything Marvel. So
here's the thing. I think that is something that needs to be done with somebody at some point. Like, Disney lets Kevin Feige handle, but that's because by the time that Disney picked up Marvel, Kevin Feige had already proven himself with a couple movies. He did. Gosh, Disney picked it up probably like right around Avengers, right?
Right before Avengers, yeah.
Because Paramount was still distributing.
Yes.
So
it was like Iron Man 3, I think, was the first one. I think Paramount still had a hand on the distribution of that, but for pretty much then on, it was all Disney.
Phase 2 on was the Disney era with Marvel. So by that point, Kevin Feige had already proven himself capable of producing movies with excellent return. I think that DC, I'll give Zaslav the benefit of the doubt here. I think he would love to do that with James Gunn. I think he would love to let someone like James Gunn have full creative control, do very well with it, and go, cool, I don't have to worry about it. You got it.
Well, I almost think that's what Feige did with James Gunn in regards to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
For the most part.
Especially because, again, coming from the comic book angle, Guardians of the Galaxy was even less well known than Iron Man was when Iron Man came out. So Guardians of the Galaxy was one of like the biggest risks, gambles that Marvel took. And giving it to James Gunn, him being able to play with these specific characters and how dynamic their characters are, worked very well. And then also with everything that happened with James Gunn and his tweets and stuff from like decades ago.
The firing and rehiring.
Yeah. James Gunn managed to quickly run over to DC and pull off doing the Suicide Squad.
Right.
Which just proved that he was good with that group of dynamic characters also. And I think that is basically him proving himself to DC, to Zaslav. So there's a good chance I feel like they may give him that. My question that I ask on this is, I know like a lot of times a lot of people go through like all the schooling for business or they work their way up like Feige did. It's kind of weird that I see a lot of times the general audience and people on Twitter that have the answer of how to resolve all this, but why is it like a massive giant studio can't figure this out? Like, why did it take Warner Brothers so long to like, you know what? I think we need to find ourselves a Kevin Feige. That should have been like right off the bat, especially after the failure of Justice League in 2017 when that came out. That should have been an immediate, like, why didn't we have a Feige in place?
The answer to that question is that I'll put a metaphor. If you're going from one end of the city to the other end of the city, there's not just one road you can take. There's usually multiple routes you can take to get from one end of the city to the other side.
Of course, sure.
Any regular metropolitan area that works for. In this situation, I think Warner Brothers was thinking, we see the path they take. We don't necessarily want to go the same route as them because for whatever reason on the business side, you don't want to be colored a copycat or you don't want to be this, that, or the other, whatever.
Sure.
Whatever your reasoning is. Their line of thinking is, there's surely going to be another road that we can take in order to get there.
Apparently not.
And, God bless them, they
tried.
They done effed around and found out. Nope. In this case, there is actually only one pathway to take. And there might actually be other pathways to take, but the truth of the matter is Marvel found a very succinct and good pathway to take, and there is absolutely zero reason that you should not take the exact same path with your characters.
And so this was something I was saying for, I feel like, years now. I've been talking about more and more over the past year because it's been more and more of a topic to talk about. But my first thought was like, y'all are screwing this up. Like, erase everything. Get yourself a Kevin Feige and start from scratch. Like, stop with all this. Because while Marvel was making their movies, when Iron Man first came out, that was the same year as The Dark Knight. And then a couple of years later, we got the Green Lantern movie. And then we got Man of Steel. And we've got all these DC movies all over the place. And granted, all credit to Christopher Nolan. His Dark Knight trilogy is amazing. That whole trilogy, regardless of how you feel about individual films or individual moments in those individual films, the trilogy is an absolute masterpiece.
It's one of peak comic book trilogies.
Absolutely, 100%. But so that proved that DC was good at give a creative person like Christopher Nolan, who had proved himself by then, give him full reign, because I know Christopher Nolan had like damn near full reign of everything in those movies. Let them have it and just let them do what they do, and we're going to get good content out of it, basically. That's what they should have done to begin with, like Marvel. And that's what another thing I've said. Straight rip off Marvel.
Yeah.
Completely copy them. Who cares if someone says you're copying them? If you're copying, you know what that means? We're getting good movies. That's what it means. So, yeah.
Now, on the other side of the same coin, I don't really want to spend too much time on this aspect.
Yeah.
There is a degree in which you shouldn't copy somebody like Marvel. Let's namely talk about The Mummy. That's a situation where we had a first entry into a series, into essentially a cinematic universe, in that you're also introducing a character who's supposed to be your through line to all these movies.
Was that the Dr. Henry Jekyll? Or
Yeah, Dr. Jekyll is essentially the Nick Fury in that. And the organization that he was essentially running, basically being the shield of the Dark Universe. That is a situation where you are spending more time focusing on the fact that you want to make a cinematic universe more than you want to make a good movie.
Yeah,
because they did that. They went all in on, we're making a cinematic universe with all these characters. Here's pictures in a magazine that are completely irrelevant and outdated now. Yeah, that's the wrong way to do it. They were trying to take that Marvel route and just go into it. Doesn't work. What you need to do is you need to have in the back of your head, we are creating a cinematic universe, but we're also going to simultaneously focus on good stories for each individual story, because that's what Marvel did. They made sure Iron Man was good. They made sure Incredible Hulk was good. They made sure Iron Man 2 was... They made sure that Captain America and Thor were good. They made sure the Avengers was good.
They made sure Iron Man 2 was passable.
They made sure Iron Man 2 existed. Side note real quick, even bad Marvel movies are still good. Give or take Thor Love and Thunder.
Or Thor Dark World.
Thor Dark World's better than Love and Thunder. Anyway, so that being said, we come to the point where we have James Gunn. I almost called him Peter Gunn. James Gunn and Peter Safran.
Yeah.
That could be their couple name. Peter Gunn, James Safran, whatever. They're in charge of the DC universe now, and as of the recording of this podcast, we have word that they are planning on introducing the direction of the cinematic universe, or at least the first part, their first phase, maybe their first couple movies or whatever. Their initial plan at the beginning of this next year. Honestly, I think he gave us too much by saying that Superman is out the gate and that Henry Cavill is not going to be playing him. I'm surprised that he said that much on Twitter, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm just used to Marvel going, you'll find out when you find out, okay?
Yeah.
Stop hounding us. You'll know when you know. And this one, they're like, oh yeah, no, we're going to go with Superman first. We just want to make sure you all are fully aware of that.
Which is good. That's actually where they should.
I'm not
be
complaining
starting.
about that at all.
Yeah, that's where it should be
surprised.
starting. I'm okay if that's like the first thing that they reveal like that on Twitter, but
I think it's what's catching a lot of people off guard is that Henry Cavill is out. Which there's a lot of people who have a lot of feelings about that on Twitter right now, and I get it, especially if you read Henry Cavill's statement that he put out. he obviously enjoyed playing Superman. He was looking forward to coming back to playing Superman. We had that, that post-credit situation with Black Adam, and we were all hyped. Okay, cool. I guess Henry Cavill's still playing Superman. That's awesome.
Nope.
No. And in their defense, James Gunn's defense, the whole situation of Black Adam was filmed, put on film, put to the theaters before James Gunn was officially hired in this role.
Yeah.
So there was already a direction that they were thinking about wanting to go with the DC universe before they hired James Gunn. When you hire somebody to take control of a faulty product, and yes, it is faulty. I understand there's a lot of people out there that like what Zack Snyder was doing, but the fact of the matter is WB has mishandled the DC universe to this point.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about what movies did come out, the whole thing is completely mishandled. Fact. You can look at the box office returns if you want to look at it from a business perspective.
Critical response.
You can look at the critical response if you want to look at it from the storytelling perspective. All of it mishandled. So when you bring in somebody to handle something that has been mishandled like that, it is perfectly acceptable to understand that they're going to do a erase and restart everything perspective. And in that situation, that does mean you lose the actors that you had in the positions of those characters already. You lose Henry Cavill as Superman, who I consider to be currently the perfect cast for Superman. He looked like Superman.
He's probably the best Superman that we've had on film since Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. And that's covering all manner of TV shows and everything alike.
Tom Welling maybe a little bit, but
Tom Welling had the good personality, but I believe that Henry Cavill had personality and looks.
Yeah,
a tier above Tom Welling.
I wasn't a big fan of Brandon Routh or even Dean Cain's portrayals.
Sure. Yeah, I think ultimately they had a good Superman in Henry Cavill. The thing is, though, is that they're obviously going in a completely different direction. They are saying there's so many continuity errors now and issues and problems of all different types with the DC universe as it's been presented so far. Let's just erase it, which again, at this point, I'm still expecting that Flash movie to do.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that Flash movie is going to be what erases everything. And they're going to just restart it all. And I love that they are starting with Superman, because that is where you start with a DC universe. You don't start with a Batman. You don't start with Wonder Woman. You don't start with Green Lantern. You start with
Blue
Superman.
Beetle or
Batgirl. So yeah, Blue Beetle's the other question. It's going to be interesting where Blue Beetle lies, because technically if they want to wrap Blue Beetle in line with the new universe,
there's time
to do that, but that does effectively mean Blue Beetle is the first movie of the new DC universe out the gate.
Yeah, so that would be kind of like the equivalent of if Marvel in their Phase 1 that they released a movie like Doctor Strange in Phase 1. Doesn't make sense, I guess, but I mean,
you can
the point with their Phase 1 was setting up the Avengers.
Yeah.
The Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Hulk, and get them into an Avengers movie and then expand from there. So what they need to be doing is DC again, straight up copy Marvel at this point. We need a Superman, we need a Batman, we need a Wonder Woman. We need the Trinity first and foremost.
That's not to say that the Blue Beetle movie that's coming out isn't going to be good in its own right, or be great for certain individuals who are looking towards it to be something big for them.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that you don't want to start a universe with not knowing exactly where something fits. That being said, there is another aspect to this whole thing, which, granted, we'll keep in mind, guys, we'll let you know behind the scenes here. We typically record these podcasts about a week before they air on YouTube, give or take. So there could be any number of developments that happen in this story by the time this podcast comes out, in which case there could be something clarifying this next point that I'm bringing up here, which is James Gunn directed The Suicide Squad. James Gunn also made Peacemaker. Both of those things are connected to the DCEU, the DC universe as it stands right now. Aquaman and Flash appeared in
Peacemaker.
It's how do you rectify that? Do you scrap those as well? Because we already know that there's going to be a season 2 of Peacemaker.
Yeah. Well, or we just haven't. This might be something that gets announced at some point.
Or we
very
did
soon.
know, or we had a very good inkling that it was
and
happening.
then all of a sudden that's going to be scrapped as well.
It does. It is interesting to bring up this part of the discussion because those are James Gunn produced and directed pieces of entertainment within the DCEU. Is he? And this is where the breakdown of the plan is interesting to me. Is it a full and utter reboot of the entire DC universe now at this point? Because if it is, then that means the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are gone. Or is there some way to still wrap those into a new continuity, despite the fact that in Peacemaker you had Aquaman and Flash?
Yeah. And again, the way comic book movies and entertainment has been, at least from like the 90s, is they've been really good at making sure they're not like stepping on each other. Especially like in the 90s, and I've said this before on multiple things, so briefly say it. In the Spider-Man cartoon, they didn't introduce Electro or Sandman. I think Electro got introduced like at the very end of it, but they weren't putting Electro or Sandman in because there was a Spider-Man movie being developed by James Cameron, I believe, at the time that was the villains were going to be Electro and Sandman. So they didn't want to put them in the cartoon because it would confuse audiences because people are stupid and don't realize that there's a difference between the cartoon and a movie.
They're in that. So is this related to the cartoon because those characters exist? Well,
yeah.
In the same way that Spider-Man's in the cartoon and in the movie, sure.
Yeah, so they didn't want to do that because they were afraid people were going to get confused. That is still somewhat of a rational thinking here, which is... And you and I have talked about this, in that my opinion of what DC should do is what you've called like the scorched earth.
Just
erase
kill it all
of it. And that includes getting rid of the Matt Reeves Batman. No more of those movies.
No more Joker.
Get rid of the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movies. Like anything else, anything DC comic book related at all whatsoever that was planning on coming out, you get rid of it.
You're talking about even movies that are completed, like Aquaman, Flash,
Shazam,
Blue Beetle, all of it. Just everything goes away.
All of it goes away, and we start over 100% clean from scratch. Forget all of those movies and any connections that they had.
Yeah.
We're going to set up the brand new universe. That's what I want.
Again, that's a very idealistic thing. It doesn't really work practically with how the business side of movies work.
Sure, and that's going off of the thing that WB didn't handle this right from the start.
Right.
So therefore, WB gets to take the loss on this. They get the L. You should have been copying Marvel right from the very beginning, but you didn't. So this is what happens to you when you choose to do that.
Now, so again, like that's a very idealistic standpoint.
Yeah.
Because that will never happen. That would never happen like that.
It sounds like it's starting to be close. They still said like the Matt Reeves Batman movies, the Joker movies are going to continue still. But
Aquaman, as of right now, Aquaman is still coming out. Aquaman 2, Flash is still coming out.
Yeah.
Blue Beetle obviously is still happening. I mean, James Gunn even retweeted the poster of that, so he's behind that movie still. But these movies are still going to happen. They're not going to completely cancel these big blockbuster movies that are supposed to hit the theater and make a ton of money. And I'm okay with that. I think it makes sense. If I'm thinking strictly, not from a storytelling perspective, because from a storytelling perspective, yes, Scorch Earth, it doesn't make any sense. From a storytelling, if we're talking about a cohesive universe, these entries now no longer make sense because they're not going to feed into anything bigger later. However, if we're looking at them as individual movies, maybe there's a story in these movies that is good on its own if you look at these movies in a bubble, which probably should be doing for all of the DC movies anyway up to this point.
Apparently that's how they were wanting you to watch it, so...
You probably should look at them in a bubble and not connect to anything larger. However, the thing is that on a business perspective, on the business side of things, they need to make money off of these movies. That's how the money off the backs of these movies is what's going to fund the DC universe going forward.
Yeah.
The new plan that James Gunn and Peter Safran are creating. So as idealistic as a scorched earth idea is, it's just obviously doesn't work practically. Which is why you might have a situation where audiences are going to be confused because they're going to get a new Superman, even though general audiences out there who aren't following the stuff on Twitter and all that, they're going to be like, what happened to the other guy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I actually don't envy the job that James Gunn and Peter Safran have at this point, which is conveying to general audiences, not just the Twitter crowd, not just the minority of people on this planet who are on Twitter, but the majority of people who go to see movies. Here's the thing. Don't worry about any of that. We got a new thing going on here. There's a new Superman, there's a new continuity, all of it's new. And that's going to be a hard job. That's going to be a hard job to convince general audiences that, hey, just know it's going to be a new thing. It's going to happen because if they want to reboot the entire universe like this, people are going to have to be convinced. They're going to have to see. They're going to have to understand. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that's what I am really eager about going into this next year is seeing what their plan is. Because if he pops off out of the gate in January going, all right, we got Superman's coming. And this is where we can kind of get into like what's our ideal version of what James Gunn's going to announce. For me, he pops out with Superman. Next, Wonder Woman. Next, give me
if you go Flash or Green Lantern.
Yeah, give me maybe
probably Green Lantern since we got a Flash movie coming out.
I would say Flash. Give me Flash. And hold on, give me maybe Aquaman as well. Give me those 4. Maybe you can do no. Give me those 4. Let me.
Yeah.
Give me those 4, and then do your first initial Justice League movie. Bring Batman into the Justice League movie, because that's where you would need to introduce Batman at, and then following that we get a Batman movie. Which gives plenty of time, hopefully, at that point for Matt Reeves' Batman to finish a trilogy, essentially.
Potentially.
Which is what I expect that he's going to run out of that.
I also want to point out, like, again, comparing to Marvel. Yeah, and real quick, I know we've done this a lot, talking about Marvel and comparing Marvel to DC. I know there's a lot of discourse on the internet, like, oh, you're Marvel fanboys, you're DC fanboys. First and foremost, I would say...
Fan of both.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of both of them. DC was the first ones, like, I collected the figures, the Superpowers figures back in the 80s, well before I touched anything having to do with Marvel. So I am a huge DC fan.
You just want to see these characters succeed on film.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for is, like, bring my childhood to life in a proper way, like Marvel has been doing. I forgot where I was going with all this. Oh, yeah. Comparing it to Marvel, if you go back and you look at Phase 1, yes, we had individual movies for Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. There were other Avengers that also needed to be introduced before the movie. Hawkeye and Black Widow, who were introduced as side characters within the other more major characters' movies.
Yeah.
And they could do that with DC as well.
I think on that end, you still bring in, say, like Martian Manhunter and probably maybe even Cyborg if you still want to bring Cyborg into. I still would probably personally prefer that they go the Teen Titans route with Cyborg first.
Yeah.
But that means you're putting off Cyborg for quite a while. And I think in some cases, there's a reason why you still want to have Cyborg present.
And not to stir up controversy, but I'm wondering if...
do it.
I wonder if that might actually be the route to go, given the history of how Cyborg and Ray Fisher was treated by WB previously. So, like, let's step back and step away from Cyborg for a bit. Let's let that...
Make sure the fire is completely calmed down and cooled off.
Because you don't want to be, like, bringing up, whoa, we've got another Cyborg, and then there's a whole thing of controversy there. I'm thinking something like you got Martian Manhunter when in the comics at one point he was a cop.
Yeah,
he was a detective. You've also got like Flash. I think the Barry Allen Flash was also a forensic scientist for police. So you've got two people that could potentially be meeting up and interacting in a police fashion. So there's two of them that could be involved somewhere else as like side characters and just brought in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, right off the bat, your first phase, again, I'm saying like, look, if we're gonna copy Marvel, we're gonna copy Marvel here. You've got Lex Luthor was the bad guy in Superman, probably gonna be the bad guy in the first Superman movie. Let's be honest about that.
Which I hate.
I know, I understand, but if you're reestablishing a continuity and everything, you've got to reestablish the major power players in that continuity, and Lex Luthor is.
I would make Lex Luthor a side villain, though.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me go. You're gonna have Lex Luthor in Superman. He's going to be the antagonistic force here. Then you're gonna have Lex Luthor as the bad guy for the Justice League.
Yes.
Like Loki was in Thor, and then Loki was the bad guy in Avengers. Same thought, same kind of situation. The reason for that is because you want to save bigger Justice League bad guys for later, like Thanos was saved for later.
Yeah.
They built up to Thanos after 3 phases. You want to build up to your dark sides or what have you after several phases.
After several Justice League movies.
Yeah, after a couple different Justice League
Not
movies.
the first Justice League movie. Hey, here's Darkseid.
And
no.
look, if we're 1-to-1 copying Marvel here, yeah, maybe you want to do Brainiac in a Superman movie, but also maybe you do Brainiac as the second Justice League movie too, like Ultron.
I would. Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I do like the idea, kind of like what I was just saying is, like you put Lex Luthor in the first Superman movie, but he's a side antagonist. He's the one pulling the strings. I would actually make the main villain like Metallo. And make the procedure that Corbin goes through to become Metallo, make that a procedure that was funded by LexCorp.
Sure.
Or Luthor Corp or whatever they decide to call it in that movie. But
that works as well. Don't kill him off.
Yeah, you don't kill him off. He's just a puppeteer pulling the strings or whatever, but he'll still be there throughout the rest of the DC movies.
No, I mean like don't kill off Metallo.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing I want them to do separate from what Marvel is doing is don't kill off your villains. Maybe you can kill off a couple of them here and there, but don't save some of them. There could be better stories with them later.
Especially if you are later on, you're going to bring in Darkseid.
Yeah.
What would be fun on that is you bring in the idea of like some of these villains, and they did this in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon also. Like the finale of that whole series was the villains teaming up with the heroes to fight against Darkseid.
Which that would be interesting.
I would love to see that on screen.
That would be absolutely fascinating.
You got like the Avengers Endgame level battle like that with the heroes and villains all teamed up against Darkseid and Apocalypse.
But
that would be so good.
But that being said, I want them to still kind of go with the establish the characters who we've got Earthbound first.
Yeah.
Granted, yes, Superman's coming from another planet. We know that. Wonder Woman, while not coming from another planet, is still kind of a high and lofty concept in that it revolves around Greek gods and whatnot.
Well, she's, for all intents and purposes, she's going to be still that fish out of water because she's coming from Themyscira.
Yeah. So that's still kind of your Thor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know. Flash, Earthbound. Aquaman, Earthbound. Underwater, but still Earthbound. So you have these Earthbound heroes who pop up here. Then I think in Phase 2, you're both bringing in Batman for one side of things, and then you're bringing in Green Lantern. Mm-hmm. I think for the Phase 2, I think you wait on Green Lantern still. Granted, I understand. I want to see a Green Lantern movie, a successful Green Lantern movie, as soon as possible, because I think that's a fantastic concept for a movie. But I think if we're talking about rebooting the entire universe, you don't want to Green Lantern out of the gate. Now, I'm saying all this. We're saying all these things, obviously without knowing what James Gunn's going to announce. He could be like, Superman's first and Green Lantern second, guys.
I would be okay with that.
And at that point, obviously I have no say or anything, but I'm going to sit back and go, okay, let's see it.
And I would like that idea only because there's an element to Superman that does involve outer space. So there's a potential for a light connection to at least the Green Lantern Corps.
Right.
Through Superman. Maybe like Green Lantern Corps was there witnessing Krypton blowing up or something.
I will also say to give credit where some credit is due on Zack Snyder's Justice League, we got a cool little glimpse of a Green Lantern in a sequence in that movie. Yeah. Which I thought was really, really dope because it kind of showed the other aspects that we haven't explored yet within the DCEU. That's great stuff. Bring that kind of mentality into the new one. Yeah. You can hint at a coming Green Lantern later on. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you necessarily do that at some point within the Phase 1. Maybe you find the route, like you were saying, maybe you see some aspect of the Green Lantern Corps trying to answer the call of Krypton and being too late. I don't know if that's how that works. But all that being said, I'm very much looking forward to what James Gunn is going to bring to the table and announce at the beginning of next year. Yeah. And maybe some of the ideas I convey here is some of the same ideas he's already thinking.
Very likely. James Gunn is a fan of the fans. He is a comic book fan. He knows how to please the comic book nerds.
Yeah.
And I know, like, a lot of times we've said, multiple people have said, in Feige we trust. I'm almost like ready to be in James Gunn, Peter Safran we trust.
So
I want to see what they're going to do. But
this goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is where I think Zaslav wants to put that kind of trust into Gunn, just like Disney puts that kind of trust into Feige.
Yeah.
I do think we need to see a few movies out of the gate. Obviously, WB is going to be looking at the few movies out of the gate. James Gunn and Peter Safran are on I believe, 5-year contract or some kind of contract. I don't know if it was actually expressly 5 years. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But I know that they're on a contract of some sort.
It's like a probation. Let's see what you can do.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I think that's the situation we're looking at right now, which is...
Is Kevin Feige on a contract, or is he just there?
He is contracted.
Yeah, but we just never hear about it.
It just renews all the time.
Yeah. Why would we let him go?
And why would he want to leave?
Yeah, he's in a comfy place.
Everyone is happy with everyone's position there.
They might not be happy with Phase 4, but whatever.
Some people's opinions aside. That's the situation we're looking at with James Gunn, though, is he's going to have to prove himself out of the gate with the first few movies. They're going to have to be at least a financial success. Hopefully, they're also a critical success, too. But ideally, you're wanting to come out of the gate with movies that generally people are saying are a success. Like, generally people think the first Iron Man movie is a success.
Yeah. The only other thing I question real quick as we start wrapping things up, what do you think, I guess like a short opinion, what do you think of the idea of James Gunn and Peter Safran compared to just Kevin Feige? We've got two Kevin Feiges essentially for DC. Peter Safran's holding on to all the financial stuff. James Gunn's the creative person. Keeping in mind, those two have worked together for years.
That was my question.
And know each other very well.
That was going to be my question, is how well do they know each other? How well have they worked together before?
Yeah.
Fully on board with that. I think 100% if you need to do two people on yours to make your universe work, like Kevin Feige's the one guy who makes Marvel's universe work, I think you go with that. I think if those two can work together, they can work well together, and they know how they're going to split the jobs and what they need to get done. Again, like James Gunn being the creative and Peter Safran being the business. If they know exactly how to put things into their appropriate buckets between the two of them, you've got success written all over that.
Well, I'm hoping. I'm looking at it from the point of view of that might be like two heads is not necessarily better than one. For example, the two of us run this channel, and we butt heads a lot on opinions on stuff that we should do.
Yeah, but I always get my way. Anyway.
No, you don't.
So that's going to be the end of this podcast.
Well, it's not the end yet. I still wanted to keep talking.
Too bad I'm in charge.
Well played, sir. Well played.
So if you guys enjoyed our opinions there, because keep in mind, I want to make sure we drive home this point. A lot of what we shared here is our opinion. You are welcome to have a different opinion. You may have absolutely loved what Zack Snyder was doing and the goal of the Zack Snyder universe.
I liked his passion that he had for it.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Because you could definitely tell he was a fan at heart also, and he wanted that to come through, But
obviously, like, we are sharing our opinions. You are welcome to have your opinion. We are not judging you on your opinion of what has come before in the DC universe. Just understand, and we hope that you take away and understand the knowledge that there is going to be something new and different. That has been made clear to us. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Where's that phrase even from? Don't throw that out right now just because you are sad that Henry Cavill's not coming back. Understand, take a step back and understand we're getting something all new.
Yeah.
As far as that we can see so far. Again, not counting where Suicide Squad and Peacemaker land in this ordeal.
And that's the thing. I'm so curious as to how the answer is going to be on some of this.
Yeah. So that being said, if you guys got some interesting comments here on the YouTube, you're welcome to leave a comment down below. Let us know what your thoughts are on James Gunn's tweet, the potential ideas, Superman coming out of the gate, Henry Cavill being gone. We would love to hear from you and hear your opinion on that. We'd also love to hear your opinion on this episode of the podcast. We'd be thrilled to hear your opinion on that, provided it's positive. Also, make sure you hit the like on the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, turn that red button gray. Come on, what are you doing? It's easy. It's free. It takes half a second, and it's no sweat off your back.
Yeah.
Go for it. As far as the podcast side of things, wherever you're listening to this, go ahead and give us a positive rating. Typically, they're a star system, I believe, so 5 stars wherever you're listening to this at really helps us out, and we appreciate that so much.
And share this with your friends and family. That's how this grows. Is like, not only do you like it and it helps the algorithms, but you also share it. People who like you, who like your tastes and your judgment on what you listen to, they may want to listen to us also. So make sure they know about it.
Yeah. And if you really enjoy us, and we know that you do, please come back to this channel. We're doing all sorts of things here. We're on a little bit of a hiatus for the holiday season right now, but we will be coming back on Wednesdays with our live show. It's the Tagline. We actually brought this up on our last episode of the Tagline, where we were talking about all the James Gunn stuff. We talk about all the movie news, everything that pops up. We're going to hit it on the Tagline. So you want to be there live in the chat, hanging out with us, putting your thoughts in on the chat and everything live too. Let's see. Do we have the marquee? Is the marquee coming up at the end of this week?
We do have the marquee. I don't believe. Yes, it is coming this Friday, I believe, is the marquee.
You got to think about when we're filming, when it's coming out, and what's
weird.
coming up.
Yeah, so it's this Friday. That's going to be at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. We're covering Christmas movies, tier ranking Christmas movies.
If you don't know what the marquee is, it's our tier ranking show. If you know tier list, S, A, B, C, D, F, we rank movies on a tier list where they fall on that list. We're doing Christmas movies this weekend because obviously Christmas is coming up. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to want to be there. It is a live show, so you can also give your thoughts there live on that as well. On top of everything else, so much is happening. I know our Avatar Way of Water review came out not too long ago, a couple days ago at this point. So you want to make sure you check that out if you haven't seen Avatar yet. It is spoiler free, so let us know your thoughts on that. All sorts of stuff coming on the channel though, so you're going to want to hang out and be subscribed so you catch all of it. Otherwise, we appreciate you guys jumping in on this one. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Cinefanatics MLP. You can follow me specifically at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP, where I'm streaming and having a lot of fun.
And you can follow me at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and youtube.com/@Robert Adams MLP, where I'll do something at some point, some way.
Way to sell it.
Come join me. Be there when I'm there.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys listening and hanging out on this one, though. Again, share your thoughts on all the DC stuff in the comments down below. We would love to hear it. And I guess until next time, until we see you again, our friends, does DC have any catchphrases? I know Stan Lee's got Excelsior and Nuff Said and all that, but...
Oh, does DC have something they end with?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, good enough. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good enough.